what the practice of security or the research in security that they do in their companies are, and then have each of them speak in turn. Jim's got slides not necessary, and then I want to ask about their views on a science of security, and this is really meant to be interactive, otherwise it's going to be like a really short panel. And so the idea is that you've got folks from industry here, and so pepper them with questions, and we'll have a grand old time. So the first thing I'm going to do is ask each of them to introduce themselves briefly, and then, yeah. Hi.
Hi. My name is Mark Scott. I work with a company called ForcePoint. ForcePoint, probably no one's really heard of it. It's actually a new brand, a new company. I work for Raytheon Cyber Products. Raytheon actually did a joint venture with WebSense, and acquired a company called WebSense that did email filtering, spam filtering, a lot of products like that. And then we also acquired StoneSoft firewall, and then some McAfee's firewall products as well. So that's all been spawned off into a company now, and then so now we're ForcePoint. And so I work on the federal side, and we have obviously the commercial side and the federal side. So coming out of Raytheon, our customers have always been DoD, intelligence community, Five Eyes countries, different governments and things like that. So we have within ForcePoint, even just on the federal side, we have a pretty wide range of security products. We have some products that deal specifically with the insider threat, advanced persistent threat, and a lot of behavioral analytics around all that kind of stuff. That's not the product that I work on. I work in what we call the cross-domain solutions environment. That specifically has to do with all of the unique needs and requirements that government customers have that deal with multiple security levels, like secret, top secret, things like that. So as far as transferring data up and down, trying to have access to multiple levels of secure information simultaneously, there's just a whole suite of issues that come up about dealing with all of that. So the product that I work on is a thin client that gives you a single pane of glass to be able to get virtual desktops on multiple secure levels. So that's the product I work on here locally. I'm actually here local here in Champaign. We have a small research facility here that works on that. So that's the world that I deal in. So I'm not sure what else to. I guess that's
Warren, why don't you pass it on to Jim?
So I'm Jim Lenz. I'm as well live here in Champaign, and but my background, I've had 4 careers. And I illustrate a little bit up here is in the 80s I worked with aerospace, with Boeing and Honeywell on fighter jets and commercial airplanes, and always had a career when electronic controls were first being brought into machines. In the 90s I did a lot of work with Toyota and Honda and BMW, Volkswagen and so on. Again, when microprocessors first came in, today automobiles have over 100 microprocessors on them. It's interesting, the architecture, airplanes of course use an architecture that's much more like cabinet architecture. You have boxes, black boxes mounted in the airplane that do various types of controls. And so then it becomes relatively easy to keep a security related to those systems. Automotive went to an architecture I call a snap-together architecture, where every controller, every function is its own controller. So even in your door, you might have 4 controllers. One that does door locks, one that raises the window up and down, one that opens the door. So they're all isolated controllers that are on a bus that networked around the system. Then in the 2000s, I joined John Deere. It was looking for someone to come and organize electronics worldwide, because they were just bringing microprocessors onto their controls. And I had a job to run their systems for 14 years worldwide, bringing a stability and approach to security as well as commonality in their electronic systems. So I put this chart together. This is a little bit of an illustration of what the differences are. And, what the world wants, if you're on a machine, is you want to tie yourself to the IT world. Because the IT world, just with Moore's Law, drives cost and drives capability and drives supply base is just massive. And if you don't tie yourself to that, then your cost of electronics is much higher. Because you have to do it. So all these systems, whether it's the 80s or the 90s or 2000s, we're always looking, how can we tie ourselves to the IT world? And I think our friend here from Rock will talk about as well. In the 1980s, there was really a splintering. Aerospace split off from the IT world and developed its own platforms related to safety and security. The main drivers of this rule is called DO 178. It's a requirement about how you can make your system safe and the processes associated with that. In the 1990s, when OBD came in, it really caused a splintering away from the IT world and developed its own platforms in the automotive world. And because of diagnostics and commonality of diagnostics across the entire industry. And then the same thing's happening now with off-road. And I can show you a little bit of architecture around the off-road when we come back to that at some point. But it just shows a little bit of this thing. So what I hear in this conference is so much about what I call the IT world. But there's a huge opening right now of how do we bring security into these other platforms. Because the other platforms are going to exist, and I'll show you why in the next slide. If you want to get into a deeper discussion about mobile machines. But how do those concepts come into this other types of layering, other types of needs in the system? So that's my background, a little bit of introduction of maybe something to talk about today.
Okay, good, thanks.
So my name is David Grieve, and I work for Rockwell Collins in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Rockwell Collins provides avionics and communication solutions for civil aviation, so airplanes, and military systems. I work in the Advanced Technology Center, and in particular in the Cyber Systems Group. My interest is in employing formal techniques to address security objectives. So for 20, 25 years, we've been trying to figure out ways to use formal methods to address issues in the spaces that we're interested in. We began sort of pounding away at the DO 178B requirements a long time ago and trying to figure out, is there any way that we can apply formal techniques to reduce the cost of conformance to these sorts of requirements? And we struggled for a long time. Recently, there have been some developments that we were involved with there's a formal methods annex now, the DO 333 annex for the DO 178B process that allows you to incorporate formal methods into your development process in various ways. It's not a revolution, it's sort of an evolution, and it's taken 25 years really to make even that much progress. It's a very conservative sort of industry that we're in. It doesn't move very quickly, and so it takes a long time for things to change. So as we're trying to figure out how we can use formal methods to meet these sort of certification requirements, at some point we were exposed in the early 2000s, mid-2000s, to the common criteria. And it turns out that the common criteria has requirements for security certification, and their higher EAL levels, EAL 5, 6, and 7, actually called out formal methods as a requirement for that certification process. And so we kind of jumped on that bandwagon. We had been developing a microprocessor for many years, even more than 20 years, that we use in a lot of our products called the AMP. And we had recently developed a version of the AMP that had built into it a separation kernel. We didn't call it that at the time. Its original intent was to satisfy the requirements for integrated modular avionics, where the idea is that you take highly critical applications and low critical applications, and you put them together on the same processor and run them side by side. And of course, in the safety world, you're worried that the lower assurance application might interfere in some way with the higher assurance application. You didn't want that. So we developed a system to support that need in the safety world. Well, it turned out that this is the same sort of thing that people were interested in the security world. So now we call that a separation kernel. And we want to keep maybe different levels of information, so different security classifications and different partitions separate. So we pursued this on this AMP7, and in 2007 we received a certification for the AMP7, from the NSA that said that the AMP7 was certified to process unclassified and top secret code word information simultaneously. So it's coexist on the same device. This was done through a formal analysis of the microcode of the AMP7, and it achieved effectively an EAL7 certification under common criteria. It's not precise; it was an NSA certification, but that was the equivalent. So this product has since been used for multi-level Type 1 cryptographic solutions. It's been used in a secure cross-domain guard, and it's also found its way in the commercial sector as a secure data diode on it's the Airbus A350. So it acts as a data diode to allow information to flow from one security domain in the aircraft to another. More recently, we've done work with on the DARPA HACMS program, where we're dealing with high assurance cyber physical systems. And in that case, we're leveraging the SEL4 separation kernel, which is a formally verified separation kernel that came out of Urbana-Champaign. And we're combining that with architectural level modeling, where we're using compositional reasoning techniques to construct systems that are ideally immune to cyber attack or a strong defense against such attacks. And so one of the outcomes of this is the so-called hack-proof drone that maybe you've seen in the news. Maybe a little overstatement there, but nonetheless, that's one of the outcomes. So that's some of my background and some of my interests. Just a quick kind of overview of the sorts of environments that we deal with. We're typically, there's a broad spectrum of things, but typically we're interested in embedded environments. They're often real time. They're typically safety critical. We live in a regulated environment, so there's government regulations and certification requirements that we often have to meet. So it's a very conservative and slow-moving environment. We have long product life cycles. 20 years or more is not uncommon, and it's, as I said, very slow moving. We're very interested in swap requirements of size, weight, and power, sometimes size, weight, power, and cost. And we're resource constrained, typically, so we don't have a lot of memory, we don't have a lot of processing power, or a lot of network bandwidth. So that's sort of the world. So when I'm talking about security issues, this is the domain that I'm coming from, and so my opinions generally will reflect these sorts of constraints.
Bill, did you have a question?
Actually, I do have a question. I probably have many of mine as general topic. I wanted to ask you one, Bill. So I know of the great work that Rockwell Collins has been doing, and in the academic community, as we saw from David's talk, I was trying to be loud, but in the academic community, as we saw in David's talk, there's an interest in these probabilistic measures, not just deterministic measures. I don't want to say absolute reasons that may not be accepted. But is that something that the community that you work in is ready to consider, or does everything have to be all or nothing, or they won't evaluate?
So that's a good question, and we've struggled with that as well. We like the black and white, right? So we like to be completely right and not wrong at all, if we can. But we also realize that we can't quantify everything. And some things sort of intrinsically have some notion of risk or probabilistic attributes to them. In the sort of security certification world, there's like the RDAC sort of thing. So there's this risk process for assessment, and I think in that context, it makes a lot of sense to talk about probabilistic sorts of things. In some ways, it's more difficult in the safety world. Again, very black and white there, and they like things to be right or wrong, or they want some reason for it.
Right and wrong, even if the answer about right and wrong is wrong.
I don't argue with that. So we've looked at probabilistic model checking We've contemplated how that might be applied. Do you think it's most applicable in the security domain or most transferable in that domain?
Okay, thanks.
So I've got another question for anybody on the panel that wants to take it. And so that's based on the work that you do. What gaps do you see in advancing security that a rigorous science of security, such as we are trying to develop in this program, might help? So I think the interest here would be the challenges. What are the gaps? It might be, if it was up to you, what should we be working on? Would be maybe an interpretation.
Well, I've got a few notes. So in the areas that I deal with, we're looking at general desktop computing environments and traditional guards and things like that. We're certainly looking for more research in the areas of analytics for threat detection and things like that, different behavioral modeling things. The things that have been talked about. So those are all the things I think that we're certainly interested in as well. I think there's also continued opportunities for biometrics and things like that. A lot of our customers are looking at new and innovative ways to authenticate, things like that, as well as like derived credentials, different ways to apply those in a practical sense. One thing, we also deal with a lot of crypto, and there's also talk about quantum crypto and post-quantum crypto, quantum resistant crypto. Those are all things I think that are being worked on now, but I'm sure there's additional work to be done there. So, and then we also have customers looking at mobile environments and things like that. So there's always ways we want to look for mobile wireless, things like that. Ways to lock down some of the stuff that Steve talked about as far as lockdown VMs and things. All of those types of research would be great to be able to get more insight into how to really lock down desktop environments at the hypervisor level, type 1, type 2. Ways to improve that. And then one of the things that's always, of course, nowadays it's always in the news is vulnerabilities in media codecs, media playback. The multimedia is always an issue, just by nature of trying to interpret data coming in across the wire. There seems to be always problems with dealing with that. So those are a constant. As DoD applications, military applications, as they continue to use more and more video and things like that, those kind of things become more critical to the mission, and so being able to securely transfer that data, display that data, play back that information, and being able to inspect the codecs and make sure that there's no malware in the codec itself or in the media itself. That's always something we're trying to keep on top of. And then just general, malware, crypto, ransomware type stuff that's going on. Another thing that I also would like more understanding of some additional static code analysis type things that we would always be interested in as far as being able to harden our code that we write and to be able to make sure that we're doing secure, best practices, security related things like that. So those are kind of the areas that I just kind of came up with that to me seems like a lot of areas that a lot of good research can be done, and I know a lot of it has already been done. But those are the kinds of areas that kind of I think are of most interest to the customers that I deal with.
Any more discussion around that, or take us into another path? Discussion about machines.
So my other slide.
Before you leave that slide, I'm curious about how you assess the vertical access of that.
It's just the Moore's law, it's just and so it's the connectivity to the IT world. So how over the time, when did things branch off from the IT world? Just try to illustrate that. Try to illustrate Moore's law.
Why the kink in the off-road?
Well, this is what I want to talk about. Why is there a kink in the off-road? Why are we struggling in the off-road industry, which is the latest adopter of onboard controls? But the bottom line is there's this connectivity to the cloud, and you've heard of precision agriculture. And the need from satellite data, and there's now 20 satellite systems taking pictures every day of crops. This data can be assembled and used to give direction to machines on what to do the next day. So there's a huge connectivity to the outside world that off-road machines have, more so than on-road machines. So that to me is what John Deere hired me to do, is to come in and help them. Should it be an IT company, or should we become an automotive? We work with automotive suppliers, work with IT suppliers. We really need to work with both. So taking from Roger's thought, I'm going to show you a little bit about, again, architecture inside of an automobile, or a tractor, or a semi-truck, or any mobile device, more or less has the same layers of things. So you saw it earlier for industrial plant, very similar for an onboard or a mobile machine. So at the lowest level is this powertrain. So the key thing there is you need non-preemptive algorithms. I mean, the algorithms they run on a millisecond time scale. So, and they're dealing with just bytes of information. Slide didn't work out. But anyway, the key is this happens in the millisecond time frame. We deal with small packets of information. The important point is that, as Volkswagen has taught us, is that every millisecond that controller makes a decision how to run that engine. And so you have choices, as they've shown, is you have choices of what you do with that engine. Whether you want to have better fuel economy or have better emissions. And every company that makes engines does these all the time. And they're all running inside your machine, especially now with these exhaust emission controls. It's even more complicated. How do you really choose how to run your engine?
I have to jump in. This is very interesting to me. All of these algorithms, they're not each running on their own microprocessor, right? So on the microprocessors in which more than one algorithm runs, is there things such as separation in the OS, address specification, timing specification, to ensure that the code does not interfere with things at other levels of
So this is
criticality?
exactly the issue of the second level, where you start what I call bundled controls. They're bundled features. So in the case of John Deere, our 16-bit microprocessor control boxes will run anywhere from 10 to 15 features. Will be run. Like one feature is turn on the lights. You have a button sitting there. So for the 30-year life of that tractor, as long as it's on, there's a controller sitting waiting for somebody to push that button. And then the controller will go out and take the action to actually turn those lights on. With all those algorithms behind all those buttons sit there on those controllers, but they're really in reserve. So this is the challenge we have with this interlock controls. How do you prioritize? And we've had lots of babbling idiots, we call them, on the bus, where they think they are the most important thing, and the next thing that's the most important thing. So there's a lot of issues about this architecture. That's why many companies have written all their own code for this level in there. When you get down to the powertrain, this is non-preemptive. I mean, it is running one element over and over and over, because it needs to run the engine every millisecond, so it can't be interrupted. So that is another type of software platform that you write into that you, again, most people design it themselves. And that typically runs on one microprocessor. An engine controller is one microprocessor. It has 40 to 50 different sensor inputs, and every millisecond it's making decisions about what fuel to inject, how to run the exhaust system, what temperatures to run things at, preheat the fuel, so on. Many different aspects of running. And what your question is about is, as we go up now, we bundle features. So there's 100 features on a tractor, but in any day you won't need to use one or two of them. But they all have to sit there to be used. What automotive does is, because they want to manufacture the machines so quickly,
like on a door, all the features are self-contained in the door. So all the microprocessors, each feature has its own microprocessor. And so the software associated with it is embedded into that microprocessor. So their microprocessor controllers are the size and power. So there you don't have this issue of multitasking or deciding which controller. In our on-road, we don't want 100. We have a chance to integrate. So we've gone to what I call this bundled controller, bundled features architecture that's gone on. And automotive, it looks like it's going more and more. As automotive goes more advanced with these adaptive driving assistance systems, automatic braking, automatic parking, they're getting more where they're going to bundle these features into multiple controllers. And so they're going to have this challenge of how do you know, which one should be turning the car at this time, and how do you interact with it? How do you make sure things are secure? You know.
Good question. So if your execution is every millisecond, what's your I/O bus speed?
Yeah, so this is the other challenge. This is what I try to show is we're developing what we call a deterministic bus at this low level. And we can't afford real, Air 8659 type buses. So we have built systems where we isolate the CAN bus so that there's not anybody else on it except exactly who we know about. So messages then don't have any delays. And messages you get through, and now you can, if you're looking for security, you can synchronize two sensor inputs and make sure that they're the same value. So you timestamp all of the information. But yes, as we go to the CAN bus, you cannot timestamp things and you can look at things. So then it becomes much more complicated about how you run in real time. But this is one of our needs, is this deterministic busing networks, so that you can really run controls properly and not get interfered with. So we typically do that by closing that system, isolating it.
So you also need synchronized
Yeah, for
clocking. So you have a physical clocking synchronization.
yeah, there's heartbeat.
Heartbeat.
When I worked on the Airbus systems, it was sort of a tenth of a second. At John Deere, our heartbeat's 1 second. So in those controllers, every second is all the algorithms you have to run in that time frame. Then the messages can come in and then you run again. So all your algorithms have this heartbeat that you have to live with. So the processor is pulling in features and algorithms to fit inside that heartbeat. So that's why we write our own OS. The operating system has to manage all of this to make sure that we fit within this heartbeat, so that all the messages are then synchronized on the bus.
Could you comment on the OS and to what extent it has memory protection between tasks and all the kinds of things?
This is our
you
biggest
expect?
trouble, is somebody will write a program and they'll overrun memory. And we don't know how to check this. We don't find it till sometimes 6 months, 2 years later, when somebody's writing this feature, this feature, this feature, and all of a sudden now this feature is stepping on the memory of this other. We don't have a way of checking.
There's no hardware that prohibits that. There's
No.
no algorithm in your kernel that prohibits.
No. Now AutoZar is coming out. Maybe you've heard of AutoZar. It's global of Bosch, and the whole automotive world's got together and said we're going to build one platform to work on. And they're partitioning things more so that you can't step on each other from memory leaking and memory falling over. But most of our problem is memories. People will forget to clear their memory or clear their registers in their own program, so you run it 10 times that day. You run it 2 times a day, and then you reset it and restart the engine, it goes away. You run it 10 times that day, all of a sudden it's stepping on somebody else's code.
What kind of programming languages do you use?
C. Everything's on C. I think automotive as well, everything on C. But we're going much more now to simulate, like automotive almost exclusively as simulate C to auto code generation. So auto code generation can generate about 80% of your code. 20% still has to be hand coded because you're talking actuators, you're talking certain types of drivers, certain types of interlock things that are more difficult to put into your model. So there's still a lot of hand coding that's done to make this work.
So is that a common that you're using Simulink also?
Yes. Yeah, it's becoming more common. Traditionally, a lot of the stuff was like Ada, for instance. More modern systems, you do have a lot of C and you have a lot of C.
So the next interesting thing that's happening in agriculture is this third level that I call the automation loop. So now, since tractors are all X by wire, or machines are all X by wire, or excavators are all X by wire, so now people have found out, well, I can have other systems control it. Why should you steer the tractor? I can have other authorities steer the tractor or stop the tractor, like the baler. You know what a baler is? It makes a bale of hay. Well, the baler knows exactly when the bale is done and what I should do about that bale to release it or to move it or do the quality of it or change the speed of the tractor if it's not being compacted right. So there's a lot of ideas the implement manufacturers have that I really want to run the tractor. The operator has some ideas, but really the baler has much better ideas about how to run it. But the challenge we've got is how do we trust that the baler is the one really sending the signal and somebody's not hacked into the system. So there's a system called SoS that sets this requirement for connectivity between what we call implements controlling the main machine. And what SoS put in for security, a bunch of people got together. It's it's basically the old seed algorithm. So if I'm a baler supplier and I go to John Deere and I want to send controls to your tractor, they will give me an algorithm. And I put that algorithm in my controller, which generates a seed, a message. And every second, I have to send that message to John Deere, every second. And John Deere knows what it is because they gave you the seed and gave you the algorithm that you have to run in your controller. But this ties up a lot of bandwidth. And I said this will work fine for the first few years, but at some point when we have thousands of models of tractors and 10,000 models of implements, who's going to be the key master to keep track of? I buy a new implement, or I buy an old implement, and I want to run it with my tractor. How do I get that seed now into my new tractor to run with that old implement? So this is a huge issue, I think, that's looming. It's going to, the science of security could help us. How can we have a baler drive a tractor securely? What can we do as opposed to this old, I call it the NSA, 1960s algorithm, these seed algorithms that based on time you can't duplicate it, but of course now people can. But this is the one that green layer is really a challenge. Because as we go up now, there's this business loop and then there's this outside loop. And as I said with precision agriculture, if you read the New York Times in the last 3 months or any magazine, the world's talking about agriculture and the need for all the data that's being available now about plants and genetics and weather and predicting the weather. All this information, there's companies now putting this together to give advice to farmers. And what it will be, farmers are very clear, I don't want the advice, just give it right to my machine. You send a report to the farmer, what's he going to do? Well, just tell the tractor what to do. It needs to steer this way, or till 2 inches deep instead of 3 inches deep. Don't tell me, do it automatic. That's where the value is going to be created in precision ag. So all those commands are going to come down to the systems. And now, you do the same thing with autonomous cars. Whether it's driving a tractor or driving an autonomous car, it's going to come from this high-level systems. But now how do you make sure things are secure? That somebody's not hacked into the system.
The high-level systems don't involve some kind of external communication. When you were describing some signaling back to John Deere, is that to some service that they're providing, or is that still on board the machine?
Well, no. Through the comlink, I can put on a Trimble system, right? I can put anybody's implement, all implements. So there are other people besides the tractor supplier that can put their system on there that talks to their back office. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah,
There is a service, I think, right? John Deere offers a service to the farmer.
Yeah. It's a service.
And does some of that service provide the decision making for where the machine is going to travel?
All of them do. Yes, that's what they're trying to do. So, there's a big thing is we heard this company, Climate Corporation. They're owned by Monsanto. One of their big features is, farmers today here in Illinois have 40 fields that are stretched out over 30 miles of space. one thing they will tell the farmers, this field's ready for harvest today, this one's ready for tomorrow, this one's gonna have this moisture, this one's gonna have that moisture, so this is how much drying we need, this is what your yield's gonna be, how many trucks you need. I mean, basically that whole planning activity they create for them. And
So how much is it worth to your company to have this confidence that the baler can drive the tractor in a trustworthy fashion?
I think it's tremendously. That's what I've been pushing for. Is we need this, but most tractor companies, it's a nuisance to them. They don't.
It's not worth it to them.
It's not worth it to the tractor people. It's worth it to the farmer.
He's the customer.
Yes. So that's why when the farmer asks for that feature, okay, a few years ago.
So to do this, do you do anything like integrity checks on the firmware to be sure that the software has the stuff in there?
That's one issue we have. So an interesting thing about a baler is we still haven't fixed this problem. But a baler, when it releases the bale, a round bale, the back door comes up. So right now, the responsibility of safety in that system is the operator to know that their child's not standing behind that baler, that the door comes up and does it. Well, now when the baler does it, John Deere is wanting, okay, you validated and assured that it's safe to open that door. And the baler is saying, well, I'm going to trust the operator. Can you validate that there's an operator sitting in the seat? And we found out we can't really validate there's an operator sitting in the seat. We have a seat switch, we have a seat belt, but it turns out farmers all the time put their toolbox on the seat, put the seat belt around it, and they're in the back of the tractor. They're in the back of the machine.
So you need a camera.
More presence, exactly. But then they'll defeat that, right? So I mean, where do you guys know the system better than me about how you defeat these things?
But you said you were worried about people hacking into it. Okay,
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing, of course, is once we went to engine controllers, and this is your car, and everybody uses software to set the horsepower. So this is the biggest business fear John Deere has for security. We built interesting measures to prevent this, but still done on 25% of our machines. People get in and change the horsepower on their machines. Horsepower roughly sells for $1,000 per horsepower. So if you had 10 more horsepower, you'd save yourself $10,000 to the cost of the machine.
What are they giving up?
Fuel economy,
Just fuel economy.
yeah, and emissions.
So
Things that
these
are
involve, I presume these involve firmware changes.
you get inside the code. That's right.
Right.
It's
So
firmware, or a lot of it. These people are so clever. They can and then change and fool a sensor. Just change the calibration in your firmware of a sensor. And so now the sensor is feeding back into the control. So there's all sorts of ideas people have about getting more horsepower in the engine.
And the farmers are involved in this, or are they just getting the
There's
the
suppliers.
ideas from
There's suppliers.
So who's instrumenting this equipment? Are you the business instrumenting this equipment, or is it a third party who help in instrumenting this equipment so it can be controlled based on the information you provide?
No, this is all our own equipment, but
It's your own
third parties, because it's a bus,
Okay.
they have access. Stories of people,
Yeah.
because of the CAN bus, you can sit and look at these messages. There's nothing encrypted about these messages. And we debated this in John Deere when I first joined. They wanted to encrypt our bus. Well, our bus is running about 80% load already. So you put encryption on top of this with 13 controllers on that bus and waiting for encryption, you're going to have to double the cost of your electronics. And then what do you put, a 16-bit encryption? Well, how long does it take somebody to figure what that is? Should we do a 32-bit? Can we go to 64-bit? I showed them that it doesn't matter. If people want to get into our bus and change the horsepower, there's people that have time and energy to go do this. But the thing we have is, as this opens up more and more, there should be more people looking for these ideas, not less. More people willing to steer the tractor. More people, especially going after horsepower. Horsepower is, you can come up with a little algorithm and sell it to a farmer and get $1,000 per horsepower for it. And sell it over and over and over. John Deere sells 150,000 tractor machines a year, 150,000 a year. All of them using software to control the horsepower.
So is the farmer is in the loop or no? I mean, is like the final, is he approving and validating the decisions or like the farmer?
Yes.
He isn't there.
Well, again, except for the system with the baler, what we call the implement drives the tractor.
I see.
This we're still struggling with because we will accept, because of all the implement controller has to do is send out this message every second based on the algorithm that we gave them.
Okay.
And once we know it's their code, then we say, okay, whatever signals you send to us, we'll accept. But Deere is, and Case and so on are all concerned, well, are they really making things safe? Right now, I'm assuming they're making things safe, but they worry about this. The implement people, as I said, are really worried. It's safe as long as there's an operator taking care of the hardware. So this is going back and forth about the adoption of this. And I think we're in the same mode as where autonomous driving is. It'll all get accepted until there's an accident.
Any stories of those?
None yet, no. But once there's an accident, then it'll be, okay, whose system failed here? Why wasn't there enough security?
But it seems like if a guy puts his toolbox on the seat and fastens the seatbelt over it, he's accepted liability.
Seems to be the case, yeah, but how do you ever discover this?
There's an accident.
Kind of like taking your hands off the wheel and reading the paper in your Tesla. Same thing.
Yeah, so we call it alertness. Right? So what I talk about is we need a sensor that sort of measures not alertness and competence. How competent are they to really run the implement, and how alert are they in general? So, and I feel like you could figure this out through the system. You don't need a sensor. How competent they are, it must be something about how they drove to the field, or what the experience was before, or how do I build this sort of model around this operator? Once I know they're competent and they're alert, then I will allow a lot of controls to come in. If they're not competent or not alert, then I'll start blocking those.
And that changes on the alertness.
Well, alertness certainly changes. Competency making changes. So again, this is the one idea we talked with the University of Illinois about. Was we did some funding here with the group about how to measure this.
Haven't some of these things been faced in aircraft?
In terms of the pilots and whatnot?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not personally aware of anything, any research or anything in that area. But I know that we've done stuff in our section on mode confusion. So it's not so much competency as making sure that the pilot is adequately engaged with what's really going on in the system as opposed to what he thinks is going on. So there's been a little bit of pilot modeling in that sense to try to capture some of that information, but not so much in terms of competency. Not that we're
Yeah, the F-15 was the first plane that never had a red line. There's no such thing as a red line. You do whatever you want with your airplane. Well, the pilot could pull enough G's that you pass out. So in that plane in the 1980s, late 70s, they had to come up with this detection ways. And so he did it basically by watching the pilot's eyes, is to see if he's blacked out. Because then the controls would take over and fly the plane. But so there was this big argument with pilots. Because pilots don't want to give up control. They're in a dogfight someplace, so they would need to pull the plane through things. So there's a big argument, and it still goes on, of when can I sense the pilot's passed out and I'll fly the plane? How do I make that transition? Two fighter jets come out, they have the same thing. So it's this pilot alertness or pilot that they've passed out. We never had this problem before the F-15. The plane would break before the pilot would pass out. But now fighter jets can perform enough maneuvers that the pilots would pass out. But anyway, you can see this, on the top. I think you guys know this very well. You're doing lots of work up there in the cloud and this wireless comm and these kinds of layers. There's places to put security in here because there is layers in the architecture. What things to put in where and how and make them universal. And certainly this off-road and on-road timing is right. This architecture is just getting rolled out right now. In the next 10 years, these things will be more set in stone. But the next 10 years, there's a lot of opportunity to bring this into these low-level controls. And how do you just make it so it works across the industry?
So, to me, it seems like we know a lot of the ways to do those things, but in general, we haven't succeeded in getting people to adopt them. And so it's and often that's an economic discussion, and that's why I asked the question about how much you're willing to pay for this. Because I think if you're willing to pay, I mean, the aircraft industry pays for it in a way, and that's it may not be a cutting edge research question for security, but rather adoption of techniques we know about.
Yeah, so this is where we need to understand that. So there's certainly going to be some value to this.
So maybe research into the economics of some of that
Well,
could be useful.
I mean, you can argue that we haven't solved the problem yet because the techniques we have are too expensive to adopt, and so they need to be.
But that's not necessarily even entirely true, right? So, first of all, there is an issue, so maybe a perception issue or a marketing issue, right? So you come to our executives and say, hey, we want to try to increase the security of this product, and they say, well, why, right? How can we sell it for more money when we're done? Is that a feature? Not usually. People don't think of security as a feature that way. If you can figure out how to market it, maybe that would make sense.
That's why I asked, do you have any horror stories yet, accidents or outcomes that...
Right, and so unfortunately, security is almost always about protecting your denominator, right? It's about the cost and the liability associated with these activities. And so until you get a horror story, sometimes it's hard to sell stuff. And that's really unfortunate, because that's not the position you want to be in. You want to be more proactive in that context. So yeah, figuring out how to sell security.
That should be one of our new hard problems.
New hard problems.
So there's another approach. So does Caterpillar cooperate with John Deere at all?
Yeah, so with this ISOBUS, it's brought the whole industry together because there's implement people and machine suppliers.
Because it seems like none of you want your machines to be hacked. Okay, that shouldn't be a competitive advantage. That should be a base foundation. Okay. So if you can all agree on that.
That's right. And this ISOBUS is the platform to start bringing those things in, as well as AutoZar. Caterpillar and John Deere, everybody's adopting now this AutoZar as their software platform. So if there's built-in ways to have security, part of that package, people will adopt it because they want that comment. Like you said, the value, 80% of our code and our controllers we know creates no value. It just has to talk to that controller or talk to that actuator, read that sensor, just debounce switches and things. There's 20% that really creates a feature. How fast did it respond? How precisely did this work? That's where we create value. The 80%. So this concept of security and not being able to reprogram controllers, yes, everybody needs this. It doesn't create any value to us.
So let's thank the folks for coming here and sharing their view with us.